The views and opinions expressed on KLZ 560 are those of the speaker, commentators, hosts, their guests, and callers. They are not necessarily the views and opinions of Crawford Broadcasting or KLZ management, employees, associates, or advertisers. KLZ 560 is a Crawford Broadcasting God and Country station.
It's the Kim Monson Show, analyzing the most important stories.
The socialization of transportation, education, energy, housing, and water, what it means is that government controls it through rules and regulations.
The latest in politics and world affairs.
Under this guise of bipartisanship and nonpartisanship, it's actually tapping down the truth.
Today's current opinions and ideas.
On an equal field in the battle of ideas, mistruths and misconceptions is getting us into a world of hurt.
Is it freedom or is it force? Let's have a conversation.
Indeed, let's have a conversation. Welcome to hour number 2 of the Kim Monson Show. Thank you so much for joining us. You're each treasured, you're valued, you have purpose. Today, strive for excellence. Take care of your heart, your soul, your mind, and your body. My friends, we were made for this moment. Thank you to the team. That's producer Joe, Luke, Rachel, Nicole, Zach, Echo, Charlie, Pamela, and all the people here at Crawford Broadcasting. Happy Monday, producer Joe.
Happy Monday, Kim.
And in studio with me is my friend Kurt Gerwitz, Professor Kurt Gerwitz. We're going to talk about El Salvador and Bitcoin, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Big deal, big changes.
Okay. Great to have you here. So we'll get into that in segments 2 and 3. Our word of the day, let's get to that. And I'm changing it up just a little bit. I had congruous in the first hour. That's CONGRUOUS. But I'm changing it to incongruent. That's INCONGRUENT. And congruous means corresponding in character or kind, appropriate, or harmonious. But I would say today is 1970 was when Earth Day was first recognized. And what we're seeing is this movement. We talked with Dan Haley with the Colorado Oil and Gas Association in the first hour. These policies that are being pushed forward by the radical activist environmental extremists are incongruent with human flourishing. And I think that ultimately that's what we've learned is that they've really used this. I mean, we need to be good stewards of our earth. But certainly one of the first things is we need to also work to help humans thrive and flourish. And again, this radical activist environmentalism is incongruent with human flourishing. Our quote of the day is from Thomas Sowell. And he said this, and Thomas Sowell was born in 1930. He's an American economist, social philosopher, political commentator. He's the author of many books and articles. He is a prominent black conservative. And he said this, what do you call it when someone steals someone else's money secretly? Theft. What do you call it when someone takes someone else's money openly by force? Robbery. What do you call it when a politician takes someone else's money in taxes and gives it to someone who is more likely to vote for him? Social justice.
Wow.
What do you think of that, Kurt?
You know, I went to a Jesuit university, and social justice at that time didn't have the meaning it does to me now. So it's fun how we play with language. I was raised up that those words, they sound wonderful. That it was like it's really meaningful that we have justice in society. It's an important and valuable thing. And to call that, and now to have that turned into a word that means theft, it's confusing and scary, but I don't disagree.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, and that is in many religious circles, it's being taught that it's important to take care of the downtrodden, to take care of those less fortunate.
Yeah, it's pretty much a mandate from Christ.
But that doesn't mean that we use it via government to take somebody else's money to take care of someone. That is something that we are called to voluntarily do. And Americans, because of the American idea, which has helped everyday people thrive and flourish, Americans have been very generous. And so it was our charities that would take care of those that were downtrodden. But what happened then, Kurt, is when government got involved, then the accountability for those that were being helped went away. I had a friend that she said she grew up in the Loveland area. She's since passed on. She said when she was a little girl, if somebody fell on hard times, they would have what was called a pound party. And they got together and they'd have a pound of sugar and a pound of flour and a pound of things to help people, get through that tough time. But they certainly expected that person to go to work to take care of themselves. Now people can get paid money from the government that's taken from others. They can sit on their couch and get their student loans paid, and that's not social justice.
Yeah, I've said on the air before the 5 stages of giving. That the first time you give somebody, you create appreciation. The second time, it's expectation. We'll skip the next 2, and by the time you get to the end, you've got dependency.
Yeah. And that's not good for anybody. We do agree there's a small percentage of people that really cannot help themselves, and it should be charity that would step in to do that. So again, great quote by Thomas Sowell. Did want to mention this, get your read on this, and this is our bill of the day. It is Senate Bill 24-210. Senate sponsor is Senator Finberg. On the House side, Representative Sirota. This may be the most dangerous bill that has been introduced so far. It's concerning modifications to laws regarding elections, and I really need to tear into it. It's complicated. But one of the things that it does, it bill changes the age at which an individual may pre-register to vote from 16 years of age to 15 years of age. And then it goes on to repeals the authorization for a 17-year-old who's pre-registered to vote as an 18-year-old in a general election from voting as a 17-year-old in a primary election, a presidential primary election that precedes the general election. That's just the first thing. What do you think about 15-year-olds pre-registering to vote?
I think we have real problems.
Yeah, we do.
And I just wonder, who decided this was a priority?
Yes.
Why is this in my brain?
It's 48 pages long.
Why is this in your mouth?
Yeah.
How on earth are we talking about this?
Yeah. So we will, I need to tear into this even more, but this may be one of the most dangerous bills that we have so far here in Colorado. And Kurt, we're going to get into great discussion here. We get to do this because of our great sponsors, and just so pleased to work with each and every one of them.
And I'm talking with Roger Mangan with the Roger Mangan State Farm Insurance Team. And Roger, here in Colorado, people have been concerned about possibly not getting insurance. And so what's your thoughts on that?
Well, that's been an issue certainly for probably the last 5 years. And what's going on nationwide is these FAIR plans basically stand for Fair Access to Insurance Requirements. And essentially what they're trying to do is set up a program whereby you can go as a consumer to buy insurance if you cannot find it anywhere. For example, in the mountains and the wildfire areas, and some wildfire areas are not necessarily just mountain properties, but you can't buy insurance. So what do? Well, the FAIR plan would accommodate you. And another reason, not just wildfires, but let's say you've had 3 claims in the last 5 years and your insurance company refuses to renew you. You could go to the FAIR plan, but you have to get 3 declinations from 3 companies before the FAIR plan would consider insuring you. Now, by the way, this plan was signed by the governor May 12th of 2023, and it's being formulated now. It's not in existence yet. July of 2025, I think, is when they want to start writing their first policies. But essentially what is happening is the high-risk areas or high-risk insureds, you can't buy insurance, so you go to the FAIR plan with 3 declinations, 3 non-renewals, 3 attempts to buy insurance. You can then qualify for the FAIR plan. But it's a different kind of policy. There's a cap on what they will cover. On a home, I think it's $750,000. And commercial property is $5 million. But sticking to the home conversation, that policy is also an actual cash value policy. It is not an all-risk policy. So you don't have all the coverages you had under your better policy, but at least you have coverage. And when we talk about that, we're talking about protection for fire, lightning, wind, windstorms, hail, explosions, riots, civil commotion, vehicles running into your house. You have a lot of coverages, okay? So in Florida, they have a plan like that because of hurricanes, and an insurance company is set up to accommodate people who live in those hurricane zones. In Florida, I think it's called the Citizens Plan. So in Colorado, the FAIR plan is the plan of last resort. You don't go there to buy insurance. You only go there if you can't get insurance. But it is a safety net that we all need because of what is portending here in Colorado. Rates are going up. Insurance companies are bailing out. I'm going to give you a quick story of where I lived. In Littleton, our premium on an HOA was $177,000 a year. We got a renewal offer, and it took us a lot of work to get the renewal offer. It went up to $400,000 from $177,000. No one wanted to insure our 98 units. We got another bid, by the way. That $400,000 bid was $800,000. So $800,000, $400,000, $177,000. So you know what happens. Your association fees would go through the roof. So the ultimate cure to that was, and it's happening all over Colorado in HOAs, they're amending their bylaws and letting unit owners buy their own insurance policies, which in the long run is going to save them, the occupants, the homeowner, money, because you can't afford to pay $400,000 for a master policy.
Wow, that is amazing. And people are getting so squeezed in so many different ways, Roger.
Yeah, they sure are. Auto rates are through the sky, and we don't see them mitigating much. And you lived in Denver long enough. You lived here a year and moved here. Traffic is probably worse than 1 year. If you lived here 10 years, you're pulling your hair. I've been here 47 years, and it is the growth is outstripping our infrastructure. We're probably 10, 15 years behind in infrastructure. Heavens.
Well, and one of the reasons, I think, is because of public policy priorities. But that's a discussion for another day. So for help with any of your insurance needs, be sure and reach out to the Roger Mangan State Farm Insurance Team. That number is 303-795-8855. That's 303-795-8855. Like a good neighbor, the Roger Mangan team is there.
With the limited number of homes in the Colorado Front Range market, Karen Levine can help you achieve your home buying or selling vision. Karen has the right connections, technology, and strategies to help you buy or sell your home or to purchase a new build. Whether you're feeling overwhelmed or want someone to take the wheel, or you just need a second opinion, you can rest assured the RE/MAX Realtor, Karen Levine, is the right agent for you. Call Karen Levine at 303-877-7516. Karen is the trusted professional who strives for excellence. That number is 303-877-7516.
You'd like to get in touch with one of the sponsors of the Kim Monson Show, but you can't remember their phone contact or website information. Find a full list of advertising partners on Kim's website, kimmonson.com. That's Kim, MONSON.com.
And welcome back to the Kim Monson Show. Be sure and check out our website. That is Kim Monson, MONSON.com. Sign up for our weekly email newsletter. You can email me at kim@kimmonson.com as well. Thank you to all of you who support us. We're an independent voice as we search for truth and clarity by looking at these issues through the lens of freedom versus force, force versus freedom. Something's a good idea. You should not have to force people to do it. Text line is 720-605-0647. This came in from one of our listeners and said, Kim, there is only one justice system. Our existing system provides all types of justice, including social justice. And that is true. Justice is our justice system in America is supposed to be blind to color, gender, all of those things. Kurt Gerwitz is in the studio with me. Kurt, before we get into this, I just saw this from the Daily Caller. Speaking of justice, it says the military could seek to formally punish service members for refusing to use another service member's preferred pronouns under existing policy. It says a 2020 equal opportunity law opened the door for commanders to subject someone who refuses to affirm a transgender service member's so-called gender identity to the Uniform Code of Military Justice for charges related to harassment. What do you think of that?
I don't know what to say about that, Kim. It's like, so do I get to change my gender like in the middle of the conversation?
Who knows?
Jordan Peterson, when he took a stand on this, he said it's about forced speech. Freedom of speech has never been. It's always been protection of speech. Like I'm allowed to say things, and then it's defensible that I can say things that even upset other people. Mm-hmm. But it's never been mandated that you are forced to say things.
That's a good point.
It does show up in communist China, Cultural Revolution, killing tens of millions of people, and then they're starving hundreds of millions of people through communism and control, like the thought police showing up at your house. So it's a slippery slope. I think we should respect people who genuinely want to be called a certain way, and I don't think that that's what this is about.
But this is forced speech to affirm something that is not true. And in our military, when you take a look, when you take a look at China, Russia, they're training soldiers. This is actually trying to, I think, undercut our soldiers. It's been trying to undercut the warrior class for quite some time.
Yeah, the U.S. we made a decision to be the world's police after World War II, and that's like we have had the far and away the strongest military, and we call it the Pax Americana. That there's been this peace around the world because we are a dominant force on planet Earth. Like our economy is so much bigger, our military is so much bigger than everybody else's, and we bully people around the country, around the world, but it keeps a peace. And so our military is very important. It's important to our defense. You think that America bullies people around the world? Absolutely, yeah. It's the what is it? Speak softly and carry a big stick. We do a lot of good, but we also we're not going to let a country, our Chamber of Commerce in the United States, we're not going to let a country not have McDonald's, right? We're not going to let a country not, if another country passed a law that said you could only buy Airbus, you're not allowed to buy Boeing, we'd be there with our military and saying, well, you guys don't have free markets. We're going to bring you some freedom. You have to be able to buy American stuff, and but it comes with the positives also. Like we are bringing human rights to people, and democracy is actually spreading, and we're lifting the economic thinking is bringing people out of poverty. So it's a tremendously positive thing also. But it's also look, when we talk about the crisis in the border, our interventions in Latin America, which shows up in what I wanted to talk today about, is the Bitcoin in El Salvador, and American intervention in politics around the world it's a real thing.
Yeah, that's true. I think that is true. I think
you might argue that it's the overreach of government. It's not our role to overthrow a dictator, to overthrow a government in Latin America, and we do it because we were so afraid of communism.
Well, and then we get to blood and treasure, this came in from one of our listeners. Says, while we play the pronoun game and weaponize it against our own service members, our foes are training warriors to obliterate us. And I think that's true. Let's get over here. There's some things regarding Latin America. Josh Phillip was on recently, and yes, I know that we have played in politics in Latin America. What's occurring right now, though, with these illegal aliens that are coming up to our country, Josh Phillip with the Epoch Times, as an investigative journalist, he went down to the Darien Gap And it's a number of non-governmental organizations that many times people can contribute to them and get a tax write-off. And also, he said that there were United Nations tents down there at the Darien Gap organizing these migrant caravans to come to America. So we're in a whole different ballgame now, Chris. I mean, Kurt.
We had the... and actually, I'm going to show you a slide of this, and I'll put it on the video if I post this video on YouTube. This is the vice president of El Salvador. He came to Denver, and this is so exciting. And I met him. That's me meeting him. And he sells his country in one of the ways. And one of the ways he does that, he says he's very persuasive. He's a great politician, and he says, I measure the smiles on the people that I see in the streets. And I was like, that's pretty good. I like that. It's persuasive. But they're trying to count the number of people who leave El Salvador to come to the United States. And it's way down, according to him, as a politician. And I asked another political friend of mine, and he said, well, it's actually really, really, really hard to count those people. That people are stamping passports when you leave El Salvador and you go into Guatemala, then you're a tourist, just by the virtue of the fact that you've left and stamped your passport. And then if you're gone for a couple weeks or so, and then you're considered a migrant. And by the time you get to the United States, it's a human problem of data of actually counting the people.
Well, I just have made several different trips. And it's rather remarkable to me that the U.S. citizens have to go through TSA. They're now taking your picture. I think I might have got caught last year on that in Richmond, but I now say, I would like to refuse to have my picture taken. They're like, okay, and so you don't have to have your picture taken. And
for how long?
I know. Force. We're getting all this.
Your
force.
Your children's children won't have that choice.
Well, not unless we stand here, and that's why what we're doing is so important, because that there will be no freedom. Let's move over here to subject, and that is El Salvador. Tell me more about El Salvador.
So the country itself, it's about 6 million people. So it's about the size of Colorado. Right, or actually I should say a little bit bigger than Denver, somewhere between Denver and Colorado. And so it's this small little country. I have a joke in my presentation that you don't know where it is on the map. Here's a map of Latin America. That's not El Salvador. That one's El Salvador. And it's got this history of it was a colony of Spain. And then it became a part of Mexico, and then it got independence from Mexico, and then there was a unified Central American country, and they couldn't hold it together, and so it became its own country. And they say they don't have as much of the drug problem as the other countries, that the drugs flow around it, but they certainly had a gang problem, and they got this real charismatic president. This is what the story is about. Is this guy? He's a president, and he's very popular. According to the numbers that may or may not be manipulated, they were manipulated. He's won 80% to get reelected in a country whose constitution says that it's a one-term presidency. So he's the second-term presidency in a country that has one-term presidencies. He has put 40,000 people in jail. He's a dictator, but they love him because he's cleaned up the streets. They did have a gang problem, even if they argue they don't have a drug problem. They really do have or had a gang problem. And so here's a thing he did. He was trying to fund the military, and he brought the military into Congress. Can you imagine the military with their guns at Congress during a vote for funding the military? So you think that passed?
Probably.
So he's like this popular dictator. And then one thing he did in June of 2021, I think this is a monumental thing for humanity. I think this is discovery of fire. I think this is, harnessing electricity, the invention of the internet. because I'm a finance professor, and I was a foreign exchange trader at a bank, not one of these guys behind a screen in their basement, but a real professional foreign exchange professional. And people would always ask me, like, what's the deal with crypto? And I would say it's meaningless until a country picks it up as its national currency. Well, he did that in June of 2021. He said it's legal tender in the country for Bitcoin. And since then, it has not gone very well. He announced a Bitcoin city that is going to be funded by or fueled by, speaking of energy, they want to use the volcano, and they want to just, you dig down into the ground and you use the geothermal, and so you get, practically free energy after you've put in this huge capital expenditure. So it is more expensive than oil for sure. And maybe part of the reason it has not been done yet. So he announced this Bitcoin city, and he goes to Miami. Miami's a very crypto-friendly. They have a crypto-friendly mayor in Miami, so they have the Bitcoin convention there. And he announces this city, and then there's a Bitcoin beach, which is separate. There are two separate things happening in El Salvador. And it's just fascinating because it's like this hype thing that he's doing, and he's drawing attention he's getting like Americans and Westerners to come and visit and kind of explore and see what's happening there. But it's also, I don't know, maybe part of me thinks it's moving slowly and then it's going to succeed, but it is certainly not. And part of this is because of the decline of the price of Bitcoin, and it's back up. I bought it at 20, and it's up to it's up in 60s and 70s now. So, it's like I talked to my friend in El Salvador, and he says, like, we're not having this conversation, Kurt. Like, we don't do anything with Bitcoin in this country. And I'm like, oh well. It's a big deal outside of El Salvador.
So he's a real promoter. I'm talking with Professor Kurt Gurwitz. We're talking about El Salvador and Bitcoin, and I think there are some lessons that we can learn from all of this. We have these discussions because of our sponsors. One of those is Jansen Photography, and Jansen Photography is located in Lakewood, Colorado. Beautiful property, and now that spring is here, great time to make your appointment for your family portrait or a portrait of those your children. They are such treasures, and also, of course, for your senior student. And you need to have that great photo to open the door for your business and political career. Jansen Photography can help with that. That is jansenphotography.com. Another great sponsor of the show is Lavaca Meat Company.
Lavaca Meat Company takes great pride in selling only the best. Lavaca Meat Company is a third-generation family-owned business with its roots in eastern Colorado. Lavaca means the cow in Spanish. As our name implies, we only sell beef. No poultry, pork, bison, or game. Just premium quality, aged, mouth-watering beef. Our store is located at the corner of Main and Nevada in the historic Coors Building in downtown Littleton. For a steakhouse experience at home, visit us in person or shop online at lavacameat.com. Lavaca Meat Company, only the best. Again, that's lavacameat.com.
If you are 62 or older, a reverse mortgage could be a great tool regarding retirement and estate planning. It is essential to understand the process. Lauren Levy with Polygon Financial Group has nearly 20 years in the mortgage industry and has the experience to answer your questions. Lauren understands that each financial transaction is personal. If you'd like to explore your options on a reverse mortgage, remodel your home, buy a rental property, or move, call Lauren Levy at 303-880-8881. Licensed in 49 states, Kim Monson highly recommends Lauren Levy for all your mortgage needs. Call Lauren at 303-880-8881.
Focused and wise marketing is essential for your success, especially during tough economic times. If you love The Kim Monson Show, strive for excellence and understand the importance of engaging in the battle of ideas that is raging in America, then talk with Kim about partnership, sponsorship opportunities. Email Kim at kimmonson.com. Kim focuses on creating relationships with individuals and businesses that are tops in their fields. So they are the trusted experts listeners turn to when looking for products or services. Kim personally endorses each of her sponsors. Again, reach out to Kim at kimmonson.com.
Welcome back to the Kim Monson Show. Be sure and check out our website. That is Kim Monson, MONSON.com. Sign up for our weekly email newsletter. You can email me at kim@kimmonson.com as well. Thank you to all of you who support us. We're an independent voice, and we search for truth and clarity by looking at these issues through the lens of freedom versus force, force versus freedom. If something's a good idea, you should not have to force people to do it. The USMC Memorial Foundation will be hosting a golf tournament in conjunction with the NFL alumni in mid-May, and it'll be at the Ridge in Castle Pines North. And more information, go to usmcmemorialfoundation.org, and it should be a really great time. So again, that's usmcmemorialfoundation.org. Kurt Gerwitz, Professor Kurt Gerwitz, is in studio, and this came in from one of our listeners. Said, from being outside the U.S. for a decade and a half, the U.S. does stick its nose where it does not belong, and we often cause more harm than good. What is good for the U.S. is not necessarily good for other folks in their own countries. Heck, the U.S. even harms its own citizens by destroying their work ethic. Wow. Your thoughts?
When I came on the air, when I picked this topic for today, I thought, boy, I've really got to make this case for why it's relevant and to your listeners. And I thought and this listener kind of sums it up for us very well, or helps me point out the point I want to make here, which is, it's like seeing outside the United States gives you perspective. And so I think that international travel, people will say that you find yourself when you travel. You realize what is core to you, and because you get to see the contrasts. And these countries, most countries in the world, there's 200 countries in the world. Only 80 of them have currencies that trade. So that means like 120 countries are, let's just say they're small if we're being generous, but they're actually they're not running good economies, because they're not running honestly and transparently like the way we do in the United States. I think our strength in the United States is that our accountants here would sooner quit their jobs or get fired than lie. And
yeah,
right. Well, that's in theory. Like I'm open to being challenged on that point, but it is the strength is that we're truth tellers, that we seek the truth. I have a friend who's a judge, and the sign behind him says, "In this room, we only seek the truth." And he's, everybody's doing the best they can, and it's not just that it's a luxury, perhaps, but it is what makes us exceptional. Is that, and a side note, like that's kind of what Bitcoin wants to do. The Bitcoin dream is to pull money out from under the control of governments.
Okay. So I know there's a lot of our listeners are very frustrated with the Federal Reserve here. So, but quick question on El Salvador: do they have their own currency as well?
Well, they did for many years, and then in 2001 they officially they just went to it's called dollarization, where they just made a fixed exchange rate from, I think it was the Cordoba. No, it wasn't that. I forget what the name of their old currency was, but they were on the dollar for 20 years before they switched to, well, they are switching to Bitcoin. So currently it's dollars, U.S. dollars, or Bitcoins. And this is a thing, a lot of countries will just say, like, look, it's not worth having a central bank. Iceland, but part of what brings my interest into this story was that Iceland, after the 2008 financial crisis, they were like, look, our central bank didn't do us any good, and it's expensive. So let's just get rid of it, and then we'll pick up another currency. But you might think they naturally are going to pick up the euro. They were like, well, we want a country whose central bank is going to make decisions, and whose fiscal policy also is going to make decisions that kind of align with our own economy. And so they were like, well, we're going to pick up the Canadian loonie. And that's the name of the currency. Yeah, it's called the loonie. They on the $1 coin, the Canadian dollar coin is the bird, the loon. And then they have a $2 coin, and they call it the toonie.
Oh my gosh.
And so I just love this. I was like, wait, can a country just choose to have another country's currency as their currency? And I always thought that the first country that was going to pick up Bitcoin was going to be Uruguay, because they legalized marijuana before even Colorado. And I thought, boy, they must be far enough away from the empire that they can snub their nose at our war on drugs. That's kind of a bold move. But no, it was El Salvador. I mean, I guess there's plenty of them. El Salvador is the first country to do it. And then there's another one, the Central African Republic. Get out your atlases, everybody, or Google it up and look in these landlocked countries in Africa. They're not doing well. I actually think, in conclusion of all of this, was that this is almost an act of desperation to take on Bitcoin.
So what you and I were talking during the break, and you mentioned that El Salvador had a gang problem, and I recall seeing a video or pictures of these gang members in prison, and they were. It was not luxurious. Let me just put it that way.
Would you trust our government to clean up our gang problem in the United States?
Well, they're not doing it.
Right. Well, they're not doing it, and if they did, here's what would happen. I mean, it would be what's happening in El Salvador. It's a suspension of habeas corpus. It's a dictatorship behavior, or what we would call it is wartime powers or like emergency authority. And then you get people in the streets who are holding up signs and being like, my uncle, my cousin, my son is in prison. And like without due process.
You mean like the J6ers?
I don't know what that is.
Oh, the
January 6th.
January 6th.
Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, have you heard those stories?
No, I'd love to hear some.
You haven't heard any?
I've heard a few.
Yeah.
I don't know what to believe what I hear anymore, Kim. I live in a world where I like the news and media that comes to me. I'm like, I just have to pray because I don't understand. I don't know what I can believe and what I can't.
I know I've seen the reports as well of people that were, regular citizens that are in jail or prison without due process here in America. That's not okay. It's just not. We're in a you and I were talking about it during the break. I mean, we're in a really dangerous time in our country and our state. Colorado's at the tip of the spear, giving 15-year-olds the right to vote after I guess pre-register to vote after they've been indoctrinated. They're just kids. I mean, they're still trying to figure out they're just trying to start to figure out what they're going to do on Friday night. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't know any 15-year-olds who are. I think a lot of voters should be more qualified to vote.
I also think that people need to request a ballot instead of having them automatically sent.
I think they should be given an economics test. If you can't explain supply and demand, then you don't get to vote. I mean, I'm being silly, but.
I think that's a good point. Okay, let's go ahead and let's finish up this whole thing with El Salvador Bitcoin. I mean, I still don't quite understand how this is going to work.
Yeah, no one does because it hasn't worked yet. Anybody who tells you that they understand Bitcoin is lying. I mean, you can understand the economic or the underlying unit economics of it, or even the dream of it, but it's not understood in the world because it hasn't really happened. The U.S. dollar is backed by the full faith of the United States government, and it's the most powerful institution that has ever existed. We've never defaulted on our debt. We were talking earlier about our economy and the military make us so powerful, and yet. And here we are. If you have criticisms of the government, then those spill over onto currencies. And so what's more powerful than that? Well, I mean, some might say gold, but we're not going backwards. We came off the gold standard in the 70s with Nixon. And so what's backing Bitcoin? It's always trust is the answer to all currencies. What's backing it? But it's math and the internet. So two things, math and the internet. So even the countries that have tried to ban Bitcoin, and if you look at that long list of or short list of dictatorships themselves, it's not a list we would want to join for sure. And so we should have freedoms to choose our currencies. And this one is, it's quite sound by definition.
Okay, and we've got callers calling in, so we'll go to break here in just a second. Wanted to mention the Center for American Values. located in Pueblo, Colorado, and they're doing amazing work. They're non-political, they're nonpartisan, and they're putting together these educational programs to instill and learn about these values of America, of honor, integrity, and patriotism. And you should put it on your bucket list to visit the center and see their Portraits of Valor, which honor our Medal of Honor recipients. You can get more information by going to AmericanValueCenter.org. That's AmericanValueCenter.org. Another great sponsor of the show is John Boson.
A recent report notes that the number of children diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder is consistently and dramatically increasing. This is heartbreaking. If your child or grandchild or someone you know has been diagnosed with autism or ADHD following exposure to Tylenol or acetaminophen during pregnancy, call Boson Law at 303-999-9999. Boson Law is a Colorado-based law firm who has been fighting Big Pharma for over 20 years. Call now at 303-999-9999 for a free, no-obligation review of your potential claim. Call now at 303-999-9999.
All of Kim's sponsors are an inclusive partnership with Kim and are not affiliated with or in partnership with KLZ or Crawford Broadcasting. If you would like to support the work of the Kim Monson Show and grow your business, contact Kim at her website, KimMonson.com. That's Kim Monson, MONSON.com.
Franktown Firearms is well stocked and ready for you right now. Franktown Firearms is a family-friendly shooting range and gun store, and they're constantly bringing in new inventory of all the ammunition, firearms, and parts that you're looking for. Come down to buy or just to shoot on their spacious, well-ventilated 10-lane, 30-yard range with staff who will help you become the most proficient shooter you can be. You'll have a blast with their multi-level training courses that also include tactical shooting while walking, moving, and shooting from cover. This isn't your average range, and it's not your average inventory. If Franktown doesn't have it, chances are they can find it for you. And for a limited time, KLZ listeners enjoy an exclusive offer. Tell them you heard this spot on KLZ, and they'll give you a free gun rental, Class 3 weapons not included, when you rent a lane. So stop in and let them know KLZ sent you. Franktown Firearms, where friends are made.
Welcome back to the Kim Monson Show. Be sure and check out our website. That is Kim Monson, MONSON.com. Sign up for our weekly email newsletter, and you can email me at kim@kimmonson.com as well. Thank you to all of you who support us. We are an independent voice. We search for truth and clarity by looking at these issues through the lens of freedom versus force, force versus freedom. If something's a good idea, you should not have to force people to do it. Thank you to the Harris family for their gold sponsorship of the show, and thank you to the National Shooting Sports Foundation for their gold sponsorship of the show as well. And the National Shooting Sports Foundation is the national leader in defending the right to keep and bear arms, because if you can't legally produce, ship, and buy a firearm, you can't bear it. And Kurt Gerwitz, Professor Kurt Gerwitz, is in studio, and we've got a number of callers. We'll go first to Doug. Doug, welcome to the show. What's on your radar?
Thanks, Kim, for all you do, and appreciate the opportunity. With all due respect to your guest there, Kurt, he says in one breath that we have transparency in the United States when it comes to our currency and whatnot. Yeah, we have 2,000 plus pages long that nobody could possibly read. If that's transparency, then God help us. Secondly, almost in the same breath, he says he doesn't know about the January 6ers. My God, are you kidding me? Some of these guys are guilty of nothing more than trespassing, and we saw what happened with the Black Lives Matter so-called peaceful protests where police officers were killed, precincts were burned to the ground. And then I worked for 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. Hey, Doug, be careful on language there. I have a question. What's the 2,000 pages that you were referencing?
Look at any bill. Look at any budget. I'm referring to the budget. Is that transparency?
Got it. Okay, great. Good questions there, Doug. Okay, Kurt?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right about 2,000 pages being transparency. What is the definition, or what's the standard of transparency? And I also really appreciate the comment, God help us. So yeah, in El Salvador right now, the they're talking of like they've bought. His plan was, Bukele is the president's name. His plan was to buy a Bitcoin a day is what he wanted to do, and they're about $60,000, we'll say, each right currently, and they dipped down, and so they probably did well in that investment. But no one actually knows. That's not written down in any government document. 2,000 pages in America is obfuscation. I can't say that word.
Obfuscation, yes.
It's incongruent to our idea of transparency for sure, but it's still infinitely better than what's happening in a lot of other countries, and in El Salvador particularly. They had a journalist who's going through the president's tweets to try to put together the chart of accounts, to put together the account of how many Bitcoin do we actually have in El Salvador. Someone said it's possible that the president is owning, like he's putting them into his crypto wallet, not the government's wallet.
Okay. Good. And Doug, thank you. And to your point, we have so many laws, so many pages. That we can't. And going to Madison, I think it was James Madison, that said that the laws should not be so voluminous that we cannot understand them. So to your point, I agree with you on that transparency. So Doug, thank you. I appreciate you calling in. And let's see, next thing. Regarding January 6th, I just want to make a comment before we get to Gammy. And that is, I was talking with a young person this last anniversary of January 6th. And he said, I knew that it was all set up when you see Horned Man walking into the inner chambers in the House and the Capitol Hill police are walking behind him. And so that's a good point on that. Okay, let's get over here to Gammy. Gammy, welcome to the show. And thank you, Doug.
Holy mackerel. Good morning, girl. Am I talking loud enough?
Yep, you're doing well.
Okay. I had a little bit of nip-tuck.
I know.
And so I've had a fire-breathing dragon implanted in my body so that I can fight harder. And it's charring everybody's behinds when they mess around. So this ought to be rich. But 2 points to make. Prisoners' record on Telegram prays every night for prisoners incarcerated or going through the process. There are prisoners who were raped, harmed. Several have killed themselves. Some had lost an eye. Women had a man claiming to be a woman put in their, section, whatever you call it. There is so much that has happened. And we would be quite incongruous if we would think for 1 minute that any of this is rational, sane, legal, proper. We had Ukrainian guards, even foreign guards over our people. This was a setup. We have seen the proof in tons and tons of videos, which I think we ought to post them if we can get them on your site. The second thing is this. You've got Rebecca Lavrenz, a praying grandma. 9 minutes she spent praying. No one, no harm, no nothing. And she's facing a year in prison and hundreds of thousands in fines. You have Tom Hamner, who served 30 months, and his family is being harmed as we speak. You have so many crimes against innocent Americans for just standing and speaking. There is no way that the J6 is anything but a crime against America, freedom, and humanity. So now that said, and I'll be glad to give you more links later. Parents' Bill of Rights today, HCR 24-1005, sponsored by Ken DeGraff, leg.colorado.gov. Go to testimony. After you look up HCR 24-1005, everything that bill is asking this legislature to do as an amendment to the state of Colorado pseudo-constitution is to ask parents to have the right, or ask, you hear what I'm saying? We're asking a bunch of people to give us the right to predetermine what our children learn, where they learn, what they are exposed to, what they can opt out to, and mutilation and confusion of gender.
Yeah.
And I wrote on it today.
Right. And Gammy, thank you so much. And again, that's House Resolution 241005. And thank you. We're jammed up here. Let's get to Mark. Mark, what is on your radar?
I just wanted to simplify Bitcoin for you. Bitcoin represents work. It takes energy, electricity, as you know, to crunch out a Bitcoin. So it takes work, just like it takes work to dig gold out of the ground. So that's the big difference between this fiat money. Our dollar is fiat money, not backed by any work, and they can just push a button and print billions of dollars, which I think is unethical and immoral. So I think just thinking about Bitcoin in terms of proof of work is the simplest way of explaining Bitcoin.
Okay.
Yeah, the U.S. dollar is created
Mark,
with debt.
thank you.
It's created with debt instead of work.
Okay, excellent point. And let's get over here to Eric. Eric, what is on your radar? And thank you, Mark.
Hey, Kirk. What's on my radar is the petition for writ of certiorari to the Supreme Court to try to get counsel for petitioners to try to confront all these horrendous bills that the state capitol is presenting to the state of Colorado. Are you aware of the certiorari petition to the Supreme Court?
No? Okay. No. So how can people get information on that, Eric?
I just YouTubed it, Kim, and it's pretty powerful. It's we need counsel to understand that. And that certiorari is a powerful thing to do to get in the front steps, to have us present something to these idiots down there at the state capitol.
Okay.
I just thought Kurt might look into that for us.
Okay. Would you send over that text over that YouTube video for me? Okay.
I texted to you, Kim.
Okay, I've got it. Okay, great.
Okay, God bless. Okay,
Thank you. Thank you to all of our listeners. Okay, Kurt, we've got a minute left. How'd you like to button all this up?
I always go back to, we get so chaotic in these conversations, and the world is so complicated, and the answer has to be found in our spirituality, that the wisdom of the serenity prayer. It's like, what can I control? And I'm going to spend time there, and then praying for the strength to have the to
know the difference,
have the courage of my convictions.
Yeah. Well, we are at a time where we need to reclaim the founding of America. I've been giving some speeches. I'm convinced we are in the third founding of our country, and we are in a significant battle of ideas. And it's will the individual be held up, the sanctity of the individual, or will it be the state? And we're in a big battle on that right now. Kurt Gerwitz, it's always great fun to have you in studio. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And our quote for the end of the show is by Thomas Sowell, and he said this. He said, "What exactly is your fair share of what someone else has worked for?" So, my friends, today, be grateful, read great books, think good thoughts, listen to beautiful music, communicate and listen well, live honestly and authentically, strive for high ideals, and like Superman, stand for truth, justice, and the American way. My friends, you are not alone. God bless you, and God bless America.
Fast on a rough road, riding high through the mountains, climbing, twisting, turning further from my home. Young, like a new moon rising, fierce through the rain and lightning, wandering out into this great unknown. And I don't want no one to cry, but tell them if I don't survive, I was born free. I was born free. I was born free.
Views and opinions expressed on KLZ 560 are those of the speaker, commentators, hosts, their guests, and callers. They are not necessarily the views and opinions of Crawford Broadcasting or KLZ management, employees, associates, or advertisers. KLZ 560 is a Crawford Broadcasting God and Country station.